children alike, murdered and massacred night after night, while the so-called leaders of countries afar debated on who's wrong or right.
Now to elaborate with us on his own work, joining me in the studio on the concept of journalism is the freelancer and writer Morris Herman. Morris, you've been blogging for several years and also making short films. Tell me a little bit about your work with to do with Palestine.
Well, there's quite a market, if that's the right word, on alternative websites. They're very hungry for any information that's out of the mainstream, basically. So any opportunity to film someone either over Skype or in person that has an alternative viewpoint to the mainstream seems to take off in popularity. Made a few videos recently that have got quite a few thousand hits in a matter of a day or two. One was with Donald Bostrom, the Swedish journalist, just in the news for the organ harvesting.
That story was that he said that the organ harvesting was to do with Israelis taking
organs out of Palestinians.
Corpses.
Yes. He seems to have started a huge ball rolling internationally, and it ended up, by some accounts, mishandled by the Israeli government, but in any event, government tete-a-tete with Sweden.
And so your way of kind of subverting the front page news blackout that Mary Rizzo says she recognizes is by using Skype and making one-to-one contact.
Yes, phenomenal. It's like an alternative TV possibility, just using Skype.
Who else have you been in contact with in the occupied territories or beyond?
The only other person to speak of in terms of success is Gilad Atzmon. He was born in Israel. He calls himself an ex-Israeli. He's quite articulate and rather ashamed of all that Israel is doing. But he is in London at this moment and well known as a musician.
What made you think of doing this sort of activity?
Well, it's really my own frustration with the mainstream media's demand that we all hate a fictitious enemy and not listen to the other side. So it's just a fight for truth.
Well, it really is taking off the alternative news streams, aren't there? I mean, there are websites and Skype chats. And do you think that editors are still in control of the newspaper agenda where Palestine is concerned, if indeed that was their thought process in times gone by?
Yeah, I think I think the world events have caught them off guard, namely the internet. The papers are in a crisis about it. They don't know how to deal with it. People are setting their own agenda and news is disseminating outside of their reach. But we have witnessed mass orchestrations of news like 9/11 and who was responsible, and they assumed everyone would just accept it. And in fact, there's a load of conspiracy channels getting a lot of viewers.
Why do you call 9/11, for example, an orchestrated event?
Well, there's been a number of movies, and they use this edited sequence of Osama bin Laden, and you keep seeing them cut together every 2 seconds on the news, and you start to get a concept of what the news is doing to us, presenting as a black and white two-faced situation outside of argument, and it's really just propaganda.
Were you interested in the way that the Gaza war was recently covered? Did you make any mental notes about that in the mainstream media and beyond?
Well, I think it was a watershed. I think, again, we were all caught off guard in that suddenly human nature just said enough is enough. I think everyone was astounded that the repugnation around the world, irrespective. The press did.
I think what was interesting there was the knowledge that Israel had sought to ban journalists and indeed had removed journalists for 4 or 5 months before from the Gaza Strip. But PressTV, for example, have our correspondents who live there and was able to show live footage of supposedly phosphorus bombs falling and certain targets being hit. And we could see that in live time. So that control no longer in place.
Yes, and also I think the Israelis are known for occasionally shooting journalists and imprisoning them. So remarkable that you succeeded at PressTV doing that.
Thank you very much for joining us. Well, coming up next, a report into Gaza during the holy month of Ramadan.